What's up, guys? JP back at you once again, bringing you guys day number 1 in my 9th annual 31 Days of Horror. This is a series in which we watch and review 31 horror films in 31 days, all during the month of October. Hopefully, sometimes not until November, December, January, and sometimes not until September the following year. But we are not going to do that this year. At least we're going to try not to. 9 years. Crazy, right? It's been 9 years since I started doing this. Wow, time has flown. I was 20 years old when I started this, and I'm still doing it. And I actually look forward to it every year, even though I don't always finish it. But for day number 1, we are doing Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed from the year 2014. So, this is a film that I've owned in the collection for quite a while and never watched, but I have seen it before. I've seen it on TV. Actually, they ran Ginger Snaps 1, 2, and 3 on IFC one night, and I watched all 3 of them. But it's probably been well over 10 years. Probably even longer. Probably closer to 15 since I've seen these films. So, Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed. I was wondering if it was going to hold up, because I do remember liking it. I think I reviewed the original Ginger Snaps a few years back on this very series, and it's one of my favorite horror films. Definitely my favorite werewolf film. So, really looking forward to the sequel. Popped it in. It follows Bridget, who is now a drug addict, but she's not on traditional drugs like heroin. She is on Wolfsbane, and Wolfsbane is basically what's stopping her from transitioning into a werewolf because she is infected with the curse. So she is a drug addict, and she either overdoses on what essentially is poison, which is the Wolfsbane. It has a different effect on her since she's becoming a werewolf, but she either overdoses or has some sort of, fallout, and she becomes unconscious. She wakes up in a mental hospital / rehabilitation center, and there she must figure out what to do because she's transitioning into a werewolf, and she needs to get out of this place. Meanwhile, there's all sorts of stuff happening there, like therapy sessions, and then there's kind of a douchebag guy who exchanges drugs for sexual favors who works there. So she gets caught up with him. She's also having visions of Ginger from the first film, played by Katharine Isabelle. Of course, Bridget's played by Emily Perkins. And she also befriends this girl named Ghost, who's going to help her get out of there. So that's basically the plot. I think this movie definitely holds up. I actually think that it's a really good sequel. As a sequel, it's very solid because it follows the same 2 characters, or mostly Bridget from the first film, and Katharine Isabelle is in the film, but she's more of like this ghost type apparition, or almost like this subconscious that sort of talks to Bridget. It reminds me a lot of Dexter and how he would communicate with his dead father. It was more of like a subconscious thing. It's very similar. But the sequel aspect is great. You're following this character, and it just continues from the first story. I really love how they tied in the drug use. I mean, Bridget really looks like a junkie in this film, equipped with cuts all over from, cutting her wrists and stuff, which looks like she would just be suicidal, but she's actually doing it to see how well she heals. She's always been sort of this dark and edgy character in the first film, so it plays nicely. And she does a really good job in this one, continuing that character. I love the mental hospital / rehabilitation center setting. There's some great scenes in there. They handle a lot of cool stuff in this movie. They touch on the sexual repression again, and the sleazy guy that trades, sexual favors for drugs with the girls is a nice addition to this film because it really makes you feel for Bridget stuck in this situation. The third act is a little bit different than I expected. Even though I've seen this film before, I forgot a lot of what happens at the end, and it was kind of surprising, like the territory it went. But I think that it's very solid. The atmosphere is good. You know, I like the mental hospital. It's set in the wintertime. It's definitely set around Christmas because I did see a Christmas tree in one of the scenes, which is pretty cool. You never really think of this film set in the winter or Christmas because, of course, we know the first one's set in Halloween. But it actually makes perfect sense if you kind of do the math. You know, October, this would just be sort of a couple months later, I assume, which is neat. I wish there would have been a little bit more, you know, mentioned of the previous film, but we get some scenes, flashbacks and stuff like that, of Ginger and what happened previously, so that's cool. Overall, I think this is a very good follow-up. I think the allegory with the drugs works perfectly for this, much like the menstruation and the periods worked great in the first film, the puberty aspect. This is a really solid follow-up, honestly. I'm pretty impressed with it. I had a lot of fun with this one. It doesn't run too long either. So the first film, I think I gave it like an 8.5 or a 9, maybe even higher. Could have gave it a 9.5. It is one of my favorite horror films, definitely my favorite werewolf film. This is up there now too. The werewolf looks good as well. There's some good practicals in here. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and give this one an 8 out of 10. If you've never seen Ginger Snaps 2, I think it's well worth your time. Definitely check it out. So with that said, guys, I'll see you guys tomorrow with another one. Peace out.